Well, it's Uncommon Fossil, and Pokemon has announced what the new starter decks are going to be for Pokemon TCG Live in 2024. With the release of Temporal Forces in a couple days, the E block is rotating, meaning no cards with the E regulation mark are playable, only those with F, G, and the new cards coming out with Temporal Forces with the H block, and of course future cards being printed. That's what we can play in standard format this year, and I believe none of the current starter decks will be playable post-rotation as they are, although some can be played with some modification, and in fact, one of the starter decks is, unfortunately, I think, a modified version of a current starter deck. We just get a little, just gives us a little less with that, but it's still a very nice selection of starter decks. We'll dive into this. Just to let you know at the beginning, there are no Pokemon from Temporal Forces, that is, in the starter decks. Not surprised by that, but we will get a number of trainers, which I'll highlight what those trainers are, and highlight as well as one special energy. So that's good. So just going to go over very briefly what the decks are, and particularly highlighting the new cards there. And there'll be a link to the article in the description below. So first off in their list, Charizard EX, super strong Pokemon super strong deck, so we get Charizard. Not going to go into the details. It does provide us with a Pidgeot EX engine, which of course is very good. Pass to the peak rotate, so very nice pairing there. I like that. They do give a Radiant Charizard, which is good in that deck as well. And then they are amongst new trainers, and I'm only going to hit the attackers, the main engine, and any new cards. They're giving us 4 Buddy Poffin. It's in here somewhere. Yep, here we are, 4 copies of this. Super, super great card. Search your deck for any 2 basic Pokemon 70 HP or less. Put them onto your bench. Going to be very good. So a number of decks will be playing Buddy Poffin in the starter decks, and we get a full playset of that immediately. Super great. Pleased about that. So the next deck is Chien-Pao. Let me find it here on the list. Sorry, lost my place a little. So Chien-Pao, probably familiar with what it does. It does big damage. A basic Pokemon that can do smack for a lot with Baxcalibur to power it up, and then with the Bibarel engine. It doesn't play Squovit, but that's easy to craft if you want to add that, which I think you probably do. Has Radiant Greninja in the deck as well for some draw, and it is an attacking option in that as well. And then they give us 1 new trainer in this, Morty's Conviction, 1 copy. And what this one does, isn't probably the strongest one, but you discard a card from hand and you draw 1 card per your opponent's bench Pokemon. So it's kind of it's similar to Zinnia's, maybe a nerf Zinnia's. It draws 1 less card. Zinnia's, you discard 2 cards from hand, you draw 1 for each Pokemon your opponent has in play. So you draw 1 less card, but you also have to discard 1 less card. So depending on the deck, discarding less is better as well. So just 1 copy, but it's nice to get that there. I think, Zinnia saw some niche use in decks. It certainly was a solid card. I don't want to knock it at all. But generally, you didn't need a full playset of that, and probably Morty's Conviction. We'll see play in some decks, but you're probably not going to need a full playset, so glad to get that card there. All right, the next deck, number 3, I believe, is Gango EX, another good, solid attacking EX Pokemon that can scale to big damage. It plays the Kirlia engine, which is good. So, and certainly one of the reasons I pay attention to the engines is for new players that come in anytime over the next year, they get these decks, and therefore what engines they get is very important, because not only obviously the Gango deck needs this engine, but also other, it just lets you build other decks. So, and in some ways, the engine they get is more important than the attackers, although, they're both certainly very important there. So it's a nice engine piece there. And then they give us 2 copies of Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking. And you may have, it was the early translations by non-Pokemon people was slightly different. So, but this is obviously the correct official translation, Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking. And it pairs very well with the Curly engine, so pleased to have it. You search your deck for up to 2 cards. You put them on top of your deck in any order. In this case, you're probably doing it before you discard a card from hand with Curly, and you draw 2 cards, so the order doesn't matter. Boom, you get them both into hand. So looking forward to playing around with Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking and see what use we can make out of it. And also Buddy Poffin, but I'm not going to highlight ones that already have a full playset of the new card. but it's a logical include in this deck list, so glad to see it here. Next is the deck list that I'm most disappointed about, and that's Giratina V-Star. Why? Not because I don't like Giratina V-Star, it's very strong. It's Giratina V-Star with the Lost Zone engine. You see Comfey, Cramorant, and Sableye, all very solid, and giving new players the Lost Zone engine is very good. I am pleased about that. But in essence, this is just an updated version of the current starter deck, right? And that to me is disappointing, right? If for most players we've already been playing, we have the 2023 starter deck, so we're not getting many new cards here, which is unfortunate there. I would have preferred to see a different Lost Zone deck of some sort, maybe like an ancient, like the Paradox Pokemon Lost Zone box. Would have been nice to see something a little different along those lines. But anyway, it's there. It's certainly good for new players there. And we get the next one is Hisuian Zor Arc. Let me say, I'm losing my place once again. Sorry. So Hisuian Zor Arc, which has been a very meh Pokemon, but it's fun to try out. It does damage level based upon 50 damage for each of your Pokemon that has any damage counters on it, so up to 300 damage if everything has damage on it. To make that happen, you get a 4/4 Dodrio line, which is the engine. You put a damage counter on it, or maybe 2. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember the exact numbers. I do like it, and I'll have to take obviously paying more attention to it. And then you draw 1 card, so it gets damage onto itself, which helps the Dodrio's attack, and obviously helps Hisuian Zor Arc V-Star's attack, and it's your draw engine, although only 1 card per turn, or 1 card per play. You can use all 4 of them potentially. You don't have to discard, so it is pretty good. And then it also plays Gengar, which goes stage 2, goes directly from the bench from the discard pile to your bench with, I think, 2 damage counters on it. So it's a quick way to get some extra damage Pokemon on the bench to do big damage there. So it's fine. It's kind of a typical starter deck in a lot of ways. It's kind of It's going to be one of the weaker starter decks probably of what we have, but certainly fun to mess around with. I don't know how good it will be within the meta or not. So then give us Lugia V-Star, very powerful Pokemon. As we know, Lugia V-Star, which puts Summoning Star, puts 2 colorless Pokemon, puts any 2 colorless Pokemon from the discard pile without a rule box onto your bench. Use that to get the stage 2 Archeops. Snorlax is the main attacker, the barrel engine there. It does not include the new Chenow, so just make note of that. But that's you're going to want to craft that for this deck. I got to imagine that is a stage 1 that can do big damage as a single prize Pokemon. And I think can get the numbers to one-shot whatever you need to. So you're going to want to get that, craft it, and add it into this deck, and obviously we'll be talking about that down the road. And then a barrel engine, which of course is just a very solid engine. And then some important new cards here. 2 Explorer's Guidance, which is very nice there. It's an interesting one. It actually works, I think, well in this deck. You look at the top 6 cards in your deck, you put 2 into hand, discard the other 4. Now, are you discarding too many cards for a deck like this? I'm not sure. Obviously, you want to get those Archeops in the discard pile, but you don't want to be discarding the special energies, so you have to find out whether it works or not. But certainly pleased to get 2 copies of the Supporter. It's fun to have that to try out. And then 2 copies of the 1 special energy. The only special energy, a new special energy that is in any of these sets, Mist Energy, which makes sense in a Lugia deck. But other decks, I think, are going to want to mess around with this too. What it does, it provides 1 colorless energy, which is fine, and then it prevents effects of attacks, which means your Giratina V-Star's V-Star attack doesn't knock you out. Okay, very important there. Roaring Moon's first attack, Roaring Moon EX, first attack doesn't knock you out because that's an effective attack, so that is very good. It will have value, so perhaps some other decks as well. So it certainly needs to go in Lugia V-Star. You're probably going to want 4 of these, I would imagine, but time will tell about that. But very pleased to get that there. And down to the last 2 decks, Mewtwo EX, which is that was a surprise. I didn't expect to see this at all. Transfer Charge. It's a lightning Pokemon that uses Psychic Energy. You attach up to 2 basic Psychic. You can attack with it Basically, Photokinesis is the attack you're using. 10 damage plus 30 more for each psychic energy attached to all of your Pokemon. So you really want to flood the board with psychic Pokemon. So 3 copies of this. It plays a 4/4 Xatu engine, which you attach a psychic energy from hand to one of your bench Pokemon and draw 2 cards. Very good, but you have to obviously have the Xatu evolve, which isn't that hard. But then you also have to have energy in hand to use the ability. And if you don't have the energy in hand, you can't use your engine, and that can be that's a troublesome thing with the Xatu engine. I like it, but I know the downsides of it as well. But it makes sense in this deck. And then a 1/1 Arceus V-Star and an Enormous V. Arceus V-Star to attack with some, plus it accelerates basic energies with its attack, so a way to power up itself, or the Enormous V. It's a bit odd, this deck, I will say. And then Enormous V does give you protection from abilities, as long as that any Pokemon that has Psychic Energy attached. And of course, you want to get Psychic Energy spread all around your board. So has some value there. Will it do it enough? This is like I said, one of the weaker decks. Well, Shenzor Arc is a weaker deck, I think, and Mewtwo EX, although obviously fun to play around with. And then they give us some other important new trainers, though. We get 2 more copies of Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking, so that brings us up to 4. We'll get a full playset of 4 between that and the Gango EX deck. And because, right, I think, does it make sense in this deck? I don't know, actually. I'm not sure if it does. I just scanned through it. Well, yeah, no, obviously it makes a ton of sense. I'm being very, very foolish. I've considered this in the past, right? The Xatu, you accelerate your energy to it. You play your Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking, then you attach to put the 2 cards you want. Then you attach an energy, accelerate energy through Xatu, and you draw into those 2 cards. So potentially a very nice combo. Looking forward to trying this combo out for sure. And they're also giving us a tool. I think this is the only new tool. 2 copies of Rescue Board. It's an okay tool in my top 10 list for Temporal Forces. I gave it I think an honorable mention. I think it reduces retreat cost by 1, so it has value in Lost Zone. Gives a comfy free retreat. So giving you another option of a pivot card, of a card that has a retreat cost of 1, is very useful for Lost Zone, but other decks as well. Reducing retreat cost only by 1s is meh, is what I'll say, right? That's the problem with it. If you do get free retreat, if you have 30 HP or less, I'm not sure how many things are going to be looking to take advantage of that. But glad to get those new cards. And then the last deck is Roaring Moon EX. So we get so another very good deck there, Roaring Moon EX. And then we do get with the kind of Roaring Moon things you'd expect. Obviously, we lose Galarian Moltres V, which hurts the deck, but the deck is still reasonable, so we have that. And then we do get a new supporter here for Explorer's Guidance. We already had 2, so this completes the set of that. Explorer's Guidance is the one. You look at the top 6 cards in deck, put 2 in hand, discard the other 4, which certainly getting energies in the discard so you can accelerate them with Dark Patch, I think, is kind of the thought there. How well it works in the deck, I'm not certain, but 4 copies of Explorer's Guidance there. So those are the 8 decks. A solid set of decks, I think, for sure. Some stronger, some weaker ones. Obviously, we'll be delving into them individually down the road. And plus, some of the new trainer and energy cards. Very pleased to see that. So anyway, in a couple days, we'll have access to all of this, and I'm looking forward to that. And I hope you are too. Have some fun playing some Pokemon.